disruptive changes to business models have had a profound impact on the employment landscape across industries. Technology being the key enabler in bringing about such transformation, employers and employees today are constantly looking at how they can become more productive. The fourth industrial revolution offers workers the flexibility to better utilize their time, thereby not only making them more productive at work, but also help in bridging the gap between their professional space and personal lives.
We're joined by Mayur Daniat of Lupin Pharma, and we're here to get his insights on the role of tech strategies in driving workforce productivity. Mr. Daniat, thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you, can you tell us briefly about some of the unique challenges that workforces in pharma companies face, specifically when it comes to adopting new technologies?
I think one of the larger challenges for our industry is we are a highly regulated industry. So any technology that we adopt, whether it's hardware, software, even equipment, needs to go through a process of validation. And I think that defines the rate of adoption of technology in the industry. It's a lot more incremental, it's more calibrated. On the flip side, or on the positive side, what we see is because of the rigor that we use in our testing and qualification processes, the failure rates that we have are far more under control. So there's both sides to it.
All right. Now moving on, a common misconception in the world of digitization is that moving to a digital network and connected workplace means that employees are distracted. Now, how do you see such easy accessibility over multiple devices affecting productivity? What's your view on that?
I think what is going to happen is there is a fair amount of information overload that's happened because you have better devices, more capable devices, better connectivity, you get information thrown at you all the time. So there is an information overload. But I think on the whole, we are seeing productivity going up rather than going down. And that's happening because of a couple of things. One is, of course, we are having a higher level of automation in the enterprise. We are seeing more better analytics, faster decision making on account of that. And simply by being more connected, employees are able to do more work on the go. So I think overall we are seeing productivity going up, not down.
What benefits do you see from matching workforces to the right technologies and specifically matching users to the right devices to improve workforce productivities? Can you list some changes that you have seen happen within your own industry?
It's, definitely the technology strategy has to be calibrated for the workforce vertical that we are talking about. So the needs of R&D are very different from the needs of manufacturing, and those are very different from the needs of the sales force. So if you take the case of R&D, for example, it's more about innovation. It's more about being the ability to capture experimentation information directly in electronic format. It's more about protection of confidentiality, protection of IP. So systems which address those requirements are the ones you see a higher uptake for those systems. So systems like virtual desktop infrastructure, data loss prevention systems, electronic lab notebooks. These are things that, that's where we are seeing the investments go today on the R&D side. Manufacturing is more about compliance. It's more about capture of data directly from equipment. It's more about integrity of data. So everything along systems that address those requirements. From a devices perspective, we are seeing a lot of handheld devices also being adopted on the manufacturing side. Now, the only requirement there is the devices need to be hardened devices. They need to be flame-proof devices so that we can use them in an inflammable environment. The last is the field force. The field force is the workforce on the go. So they're traveling from one place to another. They're practically never in the office. So they need a lot of remote access requirements. They don't have availability or easy access to an IT help desk. So the systems that we implement there need to be far more reliable in terms of availability and ease of use. So cloud and mobility, those are the dominant themes there.
Interesting that you mentioned remote workers. Now, how do you ensure that remote workers are as productive as their in-house counterparts using technology?
So I mentioned that from a remote workforce standpoint, it's cloud and mobility that form the cornerstone of our strategy. So everything that we've deployed for the field force over the last few years has been on the cloud. And the other effort that we're putting in is to make sure that the same applications are also available on a mobile device. So regardless of where the worker actually is, he or she can access the same applications, even if they were sitting in the same in our office premises, or they were out in the field in a doctor's cabin.
BYOD, the concept is catching on. How is Lupin embracing the concept of BYOD?
So I think BYOD is here to stay. With the variety of devices that are available and the capability that's available in those devices, employees will expect to do more and more of their work from the same device. And I'm willing to bet that most of the devices in the future are going to be personally owned. So this has already invaded the workspace. I think this is being addressed, and we are doing the same, and this is being addressed by most of the enterprises through a combination of policies and technology. So there is a BYOD policy framework that we have adopted at Lupin, which kind of defines the boundaries of the use of personal devices in the enterprise.
So do you think the technology curve is mature enough for the industry broadly to embrace BYOD? And specifically, if you look at the security challenge, do you think the entire ecosystem is mature enough now for broader adoption?
So it is, I wouldn't say it has reached that level of maturity, but it's definitely getting there. We are seeing a lot of investments happening there from the OEM vendors' perspective as well. So it will definitely mature, and definitely over time, people will be able to use same devices for both personal and corporate without, the data getting mixed up.
All right. Now, how do you see technology enabling future workforces to drive productivity, especially within the pharma industry, which is an extremely specialized research and manufacturing industry in that sense? And what changes do you hope to see within the way that technology is consumed within the industry?
So we are seeing a lot of productivity-driven technology investments. We've seen that trend over the last 4 or 5 years. Most of the investments that we do are driven by the theme of productivity. So I think productivity investments come in two distinct flavors. One is the automation of processes which are today operating in a manual mode. The other flavor is processes that exist in the company which are kind of semi-automated. They're not fully automated. So they operate in silos in different pockets of the organization. Typical examples of these would be project management. The other example of this would be planning and forecasting processes. So we are seeing productivity investments happening there to move it into a collaborative environment, so that people are able to collaborate with each other as part of the process, and you get better data integrity because we don't have different silos in operation.
Looking at the diverse nature of your industry, how do you see Dell especially addressing or helping you address some of the challenges that you mentioned earlier?
So Dell has built an impressive portfolio of products and solutions over the last few years. A lot of acquisitions have happened which have kind of complemented their existing strengths. Dell has been a strong partner for us as far as end user computing is concerned. But we're also partnering with Dell in a host of other areas like data center solutions, networking solutions, even Dell services. So I think with the portfolio that they have and the strategy that Dell has adopted, I see them playing a significant role as far as our technology strategy grows.
All right. On that note, Mr. Daniat, thank you so much for giving us time for this interview. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Gautam.
Thank you.